Shalom Aleichem, everyone. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us. We're so excited and thankful for the afternoon that we have. The afternoon of another beautiful afternoon here in Eretz Yisrael, HaMoed Sukkot. And we start off things today with having the privilege of learning from someone who has been a real, in Hebrew you say Migdal Or, like a tower of light in our neighborhood here. And I've had the privilege of leading trips with her to the Ukraine for the women's trips that we did, and Bezrat Hashem will do again in the future. But someone that's just very close to us, to our family, and that has so much to offer Am Yisrael. So we start off things with learning from Shoshana Yudelman. Shoshana, good morning.
Unmute. Hi, how are you?
Wonderful. Good morning. You're only about 10 seconds
right
away
there
from me.
I can see the walls of your sukkah from here.
Yeah. So take it away, sister. It's all yours.
Okay, so I wanted to actually start off with a story, which is sort of a bracha for you, actually. The story is told that Rabbi Menachem Mendel Rimanov, that he was very, very poor. And there was one time that their mamish was nothing to eat in the house, and his son was crying to him, and he said, I can't take it anymore. Like, I'm about to expire from hunger. And the Rimanover said to him, you can't possibly be that hungry. You're exaggerating, because if you were that hungry, then I would have something to feed you. Hashem would send something, to feed you. And just as his son basically turned around and started to walk out, he saw that there was a coin that was sitting there on the floor. And so he said, I see, you weren't actually exaggerating. You actually were that hungry. And so, we were told that this Sukkot was going to be a Sukkot in Seger. And I think a lot of people are mamish hungry for being together, for having a real Sukkot. And Baruch Hashem, Hashem sent us you, and you're like our coin. But like the idea of Zoom, of doing this, of being together virtually, obviously it has its limitations, but it's really enabled so many people to actually have a chag. So I just want to give you a bracha, and Sabina also, that you should always continue to have the koch to, and the heart to be the vessels through which Hashem sends us chizuk, sends us mazon. And Hashem should just send you and your family, who we love so much, so many brachas in the schus of all you're doing for Am Yisrael.
Amen. Thank you.
So there's a pasuk that we say in the Musaf of all of the Shalosh Regalim, and it's a really beautiful pasuk. It's from Devarim. It says, Shalosh pamim b'shana yira'eh kol zechorcha es pnei Hashem Elokecha b'makom asher yivchar. That 3 times a year. And it goes on, B'chag Pesach, Chag HaShavuot, B'chag HaSukkot, right? On Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot, all the males will appear in the place that Hashem chooses, and they'll see the face of Hashem, right? V'lo yira'eh et pnei Hashem rekam. But they should not come to see the face of Hashem empty-handed. And then the Chumash goes on, Ish kemasnas yado kebirkas Hashem Elokecha asher natan lach. That each person should bring their own gift according to the bracha that Hashem gave her. And it's a really beautiful pasuk, and it tells us, what the Bnei Israel were doing 3 times a year, and helps us to connect. And 3 times a year, this idea of seeing Hashem's face is really a beautiful, beautiful concept. But what do we do with it, right? We're not bringing korbanos. Obviously, the empty-handed, they were supposed to bring korbanos. They were supposed to bring something to put up on the mizbeach. And what does it mean for us today? So we'll come back to this idea at the end. I hope it'll tie all in together. But one of the most famous and most beautiful concepts of Sukkot is the Simchas Pesach Shoeva, the water drawing ceremony. So, or the celebrations that preceded the water drawing, right? All night long in the Beis HaMikdash, we learned that the Rabbanim were dancing and, juggling fire, and there was music all night long. It was the greatest party of the year. And it was all in anticipation of going down to the Mei HaShilach in the morning and, bringing up the water, and then that water becomes part of the korbanot that were offered on Sukkot. And this is the only time of the year that water was poured out onto the Mizbeach. So Chazal teach us that this idea of drawing down into this world, that the physical notion of drawing out the water was the spiritual concept of drawing down Ruach HaKodesh into the world, into our lives, into our hearts. It says, why is it, Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi asks, why is it called Simchas Beis HaShoeva? Shemisham hayu shoavim Ruach HaKodesh. That from there, we draw down Ruach HaKodesh, right? Inspiration. And the Sfas Emes points out that even though it was 7 days and it was only in Yerushalayim and it seemingly was only the Jews that were participating, that it really was an aspect that it wasn't only for the Jews. It was Jews doing it for the whole world. And it was not only in Yerushalayim, it was being drawn down into the whole world. And it wasn't only for those 7 days, it was really for the whole year. And then, famously, that same Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, he says, okay, well, whoever hasn't seen the Simchas Beis HaShoeva has not really seen happiness. So that pasuk always bothered me because, okay, what are we supposed to do with that? We haven't seen it. And the Sfas Emes goes on in the same piece, and he says, Re'iyah, sight, is also with the eyes of the heart, the eyes of our soul. And that anyone who contemplates this idea, anyone who learns about the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, anybody who talks about it or imagines it, in their mind, it's ke'ilu, as if they're seeing it, as if they're not just seeing it, but experiencing it. So there's this idea that it translates to us, sitting in our sukkahs and learning Torah together and really trying to mamish celebrate this Chag in a way that it's never been celebrated before, that in that way we connect on a ruchnius level to the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. So the Rebbe, the Lubavitcher Rebbe, he points out that during the rest of the year, wine is poured out on the Mizbeach, right? And only on Sukkot it's water. So what's the difference between wine and water? Right? There are times for wine, obviously. This week is a good time for wine, but it's also a good time for water because the Rebbe explains that wine represents, it has ta'am, it has taste, but ta'am in Hebrew also means reason. So wine represents serving Hashem because we understand what we're doing. Serving Hashem with our reason, with our seichel. Serving Hashem because we learn the mitzvahs and we understand why we're doing them, kilu, and that's a certain level of service. But water has no taste, right? So water represents Kabbalah's ol. Water represents serving Hashem on a level that we don't understand, a level that has no reason, a level that's above reason, a level that's above understanding. So, when we're thirsty, do you ever, by accident, take something and it wasn't water and it it doesn't satisfy your thirst? When you're thirsty, and it's pretty hot here in Israel at the moment, and when you're thirsty, water is the only thing that quenches your thirst. So our souls are thirsty. They're thirsty for connection with Hashem. And they're thirsty specifically for this type of connection that's beyond reason. They're thirsty for to feed the essential connection between us and Hashem, and that's only on a level of Kabbalah soul. So once a year on Sukkot, we draw down the energy to keep seeking that connection and keep on feeling that connection that is beyond our understanding, the connection that goes beyond the world. And right now that's a very comforting thought. We don't have any clue. We don't really understand at all what's going on in the world right now. And so to have a connection with Hashem that sort of is for that time, is for that, situation when we don't understand anything. So to me, that's a really, really comforting thought. And we're feeding that connection this week on Sukkot. Now, one of the other ideas about Sukkot that everybody talks about and everybody shares and is a very powerful one are the Ushpezin. So today's Ushpez is Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu there's a water theme that goes throughout this year, throughout the week. Moshe Rabbeinu has an essential connection to water. That we know that when he was born during the decree that Paro made that all Jewish baby boys should be killed. We know that his mother Yocheved tried to hide him, but once she couldn't hide him after 3 months, she put him in a teva and she put him on the Nile in the water. And ultimately, Bat Paro finds him. And she takes him out of the water. And we learn that that's where his name comes from. Because the Bat Paro says Ki min hamayim mishitehu, because he was drawn out of the water. So v'tikra shmo Moshe, right? That Moshe literally means being drawn from the water. And there's a beautiful, beautiful sforno that explains that, by the way, I have a source sheet. I didn't want to put it up because I want to be able to see all your faces, and I want to, have this be like a personal thing. But if you want the source sheet, please feel free to write to me or to write to Rav Shlomo, and I'll be happy to forward it or post it somewhere. So anyway, there's a sforno that says that in giving him this name, Batya, or Bat Paro, Batya, she gave Moshe the ability to draw others out, meaning she drew him out of water, and water was his difficult, that was like a danger for him. And in giving him that name, she gave him the koach, or she drew down for him the koach to draw other people out of their own difficulties. And not only that, but this power of like drawing out, okay? So we also have challenges in our lives, right? And there's an idea that Moshe Rabbeinu, because he was the leader and because he faced these challenges in his life and because his name was Moshe and because that's the koach that he brought down into the world, so he also gives us this, he empowers us to sort of draw certain aspects out of ourselves as well in order to get ourselves out of difficulties. Moshe Rabbeinu is called the Eved Hashem, the ultimate example of someone who served Hashem. And so, how can we take that? How can we, what can we make of that? How can we emulate him? So we know what's the most famous thing about Moshe from the beginning of the story is that he didn't want to go. He didn't want to be chosen. He didn't want to be Hashem's, representative to take Am Yisrael out of Mitzrayim. Why? Lo ish devarim anochi. I'm not a man of words. Ki kaved peh, the kaved lashon anochi. Right? I'm like, I can't speak properly. I'm heavy of tongue. I'm heavy of lips. I can't get the words out properly. And Moshe Rabbeinu argues with Hashem. And the Mepharshim actually tell us that he argues with Hashem for 7 days. 7 days, this argument went back and forth. You can do it. I can't do it. I want you to do it. I don't want to do it. Call someone else. Find someone else. Back and forth and back and forth. And finally, Hashem says to him, "Va'anochi eheyeh im picha." I will be with your mouth, right? I will be like in your mouth. And Moshe Rabbeinu takes it on. So this is such a powerful lesson for us because Davka, the spokesman for Am Yisrael, is someone that, Kilu has a speech impediment. There's someone who can't get the words out. And he's chosen to be the spokesperson for Hashem, the spokesperson for Am Yisrael, the go-between. And we learn from this that he pushed himself beyond what he thought were his limits. He pushed himself beyond what he thought he could do because Hashem was going to be with him, because Hashem asked him to, and because he believed that Hashem ultimately gave him the strength to do that. So sometimes we look at our own, like our weaknesses, the places that, we don't think we're so talented, we're not so strong, and we think that those are the places that we should sort of like hide away from the world. And Moshe Rabbeinu is teaching us that Davka, it's those things that we need to draw out of ourselves because sometimes it's those things that Hashem gave us as challenges to work on, and those things can Davka be the things that bring us highest in this world. Those things that we work on and we make our own and we draw out into the world, those can change the world. Those can change us. They can change, the circumstances. And so Hashem wants us to put our attention on those things. Also, he's not looking for perfect people. But he wasn't looking for someone who already was, a spokesmodel, I don't know. He was looking for someone who was willing to work on himself. He was looking for someone who would work on himself. And I think there's no coincidence, obviously, no coincidences in the world, but there's no coincidence that the Mefarshim tell us that it was 7 days that this argument took place, right? 7 days, they're going back and forth. I can't, you can, I don't want to, you can, you will, and we're in a period that's known as, the 7 days. These are 7 days of Sukkot, 7 days of drawing water, 7 days of having the koach of Moshe to sort of draw out from within ourselves these talents that are only ours, these places where we feel we're weak, that Davka we can work on, and Hashem will be with us, and we can be the strongest. Today's also Rabbi Nachman's Yahrzeit, and I'm still a new Talmidah to Rabbi Nachman, so I don't claim to understand, but there is one aspect that that everyone calls Rabbi Nachman Nachal Novea Makor Chachma. So Nachal Novea is like a flowing stream, and Makor Chachma is this fountain of wisdom. It comes from Mishlei. It's a pasuk in Mishlei. Maim amukim divrei pi ish. The words of a man's mouth are as deep waters. Nachal Novea, flowing brook. Makor Chachma, fountain of wisdom. So there's a beautiful comment by the Malbim on this, and he says that actually we're all Nachal Noveas, right? We all have these like flowing streams of wisdom within us, and really they are flowing effortlessly. They should be bursting out of us into the world, but because we have a body, and because the body is sort of limits and it puts barriers on what's going on inside, and it's connected to the world of nature, and because we have a yetzer in our heart, so we put limitations on ourselves, and because of that, it hides and it buries the wisdom that every single one of us has within us. And the Malbim says, therefore, it takes a lot of effort. He says you have to put in rope after rope and bucket after bucket to draw out the wisdom that's really deep inside of us. But we all have it, and through through the help of Rabbi Nachman, through the koach of Moshe Rabbeinu, we should be blessed to keep on working on drawing out each one of us our own wisdom. Now, I want to go back to the psukim that we started with in the beginning, because we can understand them now in a little bit of a different light, right? Shalosh pa'amim b'shana yira'eh kol zechurcha es pnei Hashem Elokecha, right? 3 times in the year, the males shall appear, or the people, let's say, shall appear before the face of Hashem, or see the face of Hashem, on Pesach, on Shavuot, on Sukkot. B'makom asher yivchar, that's very important, in the place that Hashem chose us, right? On the place that Hashem chose. B'chag hamatzot, b'chag hashavuot, b'chag hasukot, v'lo yira'etz pnei Hashem rekam, and we should not come to face Hashem empty-handed. Ish kemasnas yado kevirkas Hashem Elokecha asher natan lach, that each one of us brings the gift that Hashem gave us to bring. So let's talk about korbanos for a second. What's the point of a korban, right? The word, the root, kuf reish bet, means to come close. So we know that the whole idea of korbanos is to bring us closer to Hashem, to show that we want to become close to Hashem, and it's a mechanism through which we can become close to Hashem. What are we supposed to really be putting on the mizbeach? Us, ourselves, our hearts, right? Our souls. We don't do that, so symbolically we put the behemoths, we put the animals on the mizbeach, and this week we put the water on the mizbeach. So the idea, trying to like tie it all together, the idea of drawing out the wisdom and the abilities and the talents and the special gifts, right, that Hashem gave each one of us from deep inside of ourselves, that's what we're drawing down this week, and that's what we're bringing to Hashem ki'ilu as a korban. And even though, like the Sfas Emes says in the beginning, right, even though we're not physically doing it, we can do it in our hearts. We can do it with the eyes of our soul, with the eyes of our hearts, and we can bring that same energy into the world, right? Dafka, it's often the times that we feel like we're in the darkest place that we can turn to Hashem in a very, very real way, because there's nowhere else to turn, and that's where we feel His presence in the strongest way. But we have to bring ourselves there. We have to draw it out of ourselves. We have to draw ourselves out, and we have to look with the right eyes. So, in the light of what we talked about, this idea that we use these days, that each one of us is empowered on these days to bring out of ourselves these deep special talents and abilities and ideas and personalities. So in the schus of the concept and the energy that still exists in the world of the Simchas Pesach Shueva and of the Nisa Hamayim, the water pouring, so, and also in the place of Hashem's choosing, right? Because this year, this is the place of Hashem's choosing. We're each one in our own place, in our own sukkah. We're doing this, in all little capsules all around the world. So through all of this, we really draw down the simcha. We bring down the koach. I want to finish with a story. It was, those of you who know me know that I find chizuk in stories of impossible situations that people found chizuk in. So I hope this will help whoever it needs to help. It was 1944, and it was fall, and it was in Auschwitz. And the 1944 fall, this time, Tishrei in Auschwitz was like so close to the end. It was so close to when Auschwitz stopped functioning as, hell on earth. But it was also at the height of, train after train after train, and there was a massive population there. And there was a boy named David Yisrael. So David Yisrael was 13 years old. He was Hungarian, as many of the at that point the bulk of the population and who was still alive in Auschwitz were, and he was lucky enough to be assigned to work in the Gypsy Camp in the place where sick people were kept. So he actually gave out food, divvied up the food to the sick people, and with that kind of access, he actually was able to help a number of people survive, including his own father, Baruch Hashem. But one night he was woken up from his sleep by another prisoner, by an older man, tapping him on the shoulder and saying, are you David? Are you David? And he said, yes. And he looked at this man, but, obviously everybody looked the same in Auschwitz. There was no beard, there were no payas, but he said he remembered that his eyes were like blazing fires. And he said to him, can you help me? Tomorrow night is the first night of Sukkot, and I have a sukkah, but I need lechem mishnah. And David said to him, you have a sukkah? Like in Auschwitz? How do you have a sukkah? And he said, no, don't ask any questions. I just have a sukkah, but I need your help. I want to make kiddush. I need lechem mishnah. I won't eat the whole thing. I won't eat I know you'll get into trouble. I just want to have the loaves, and I'll take off a tiny little piece just to be zocha, the mitzvah, yotze, the mitzvah, and I'll give it back to you, and you'll be able to bring it back, and you won't get into trouble. And so David thought for a minute. And he said, I'll get you the bread on the condition that you take me with you to the sukkah, that you let me also make a bracha in the sukkah. And the man was like, no, you can't. You're going to risk your life. It's too dangerous. And David insisted. He said, this is the only way that I'll do it. And finally he agreed. And he showed him how he should, carry the loaves under his shred-bare, garments that he was wearing. And the next night they met. So what was happening was that there was like an influx that was coming in, and the Yimach Shemams were trying to get ready, and they brought all these bunks, like these 3-level bunks, out into this open field. And what this man had done was like cut out some of the top bunk, and he put some schach over it, and it was barely a kosher sukkah, but it was a kosher sukkah. And they made kiddush, and they made a bracha leishev b'sukkah. And later on in his life, David Yisrael, when people would ask him, how did he have the strength to survive? He said, it was this mitzvah. It was doing this mitzvah. This gave him the strength to survive. I'll just tell you that the man that woke him up, it was by Hashgacha Pratis, they met up later in life. The man was Rav Tzvi Hirsch Meisels, who was responsible for one of the most important books of Sheilot v'Tshuvot from that time period. So I want to give us all a bracha. That the avoda that we're doing this Sukkot, by sitting in our sukkahs with our nuclear families or alone, but through wanting to connect, through wanting to celebrate, through wanting to be here and to learn about, to learn Torah and to share our souls with each other, that it should help us to all feel that koach, feel the energy that Hashem is sending us. And it should strengthen us to keep on going. It should strengthen us to keep on trying. It should strengthen us to keep on drawing out, each one of us, the special gifts that Hashem is blessing each one of us with every single day. That we should have the koach to use those gifts to bring more light into the world. That we should use and draw out these the ratzon in ourselves that we should know that it's not in vain. It's being felt, and it's bringing an amazing energy into the world. And we should keep on going until we're blessed to truly see with our physical eyes and our spiritual eyes, right? The ultimate simcha that will come with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu b'mehera b'yameinu mamish.
יישר koyach, Shoshana. Thank you so much. Kol hamevarech, kol hamevarechet, mitbarechet, all the brachas you give out should come back to you and Chaim and the kids. And knowing time is over, and you should have this inyan of feeling this shmira that you feel right now under the sukkah, kol yamei chayechem, all the days of the year, Bezrat Hashem. And I bless you with a very, very busy year of Harbatzas Torah, of giving over nonstop, because it's Kiyem Chayenu V'Arech Yameinu. It gives you so much life. So thank you so much. And for all the women that are joining us now online, be in touch with Shoshana directly or with me to find out when all of her additional shiurim are, which will be resuming after Sukkot, Be'ezrat Hashem. So stay in touch regarding that. Thank you so much, Shoshana. We appreciate it. With all our hearts. So coming up shortly, we'll have the privilege of hearing from, learning from Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky. I would like to thank everyone for being part of this. I want to thank Shimon Detweiler for making sure that this is all able to be flowing as smoothly as it has been. There was a flyer that was sent out yesterday with the actual schedule of everything. There are a little bit, some additions. Well, you just keep on flowing with us, keep on being with us, because things are being added on as we speak. After Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky at 5 p.m., we're in for a very special treat with Rebbe Davidel Weinberg. And that will be at 5 o'clock. 5:30 p.m. is with Rabbi Moshe Gerst, someone that I feel very, very close to, and I'm excited to have here with us. That's at 5:30 p.m. At 8:30 tonight, we begin with tonight's Ushpezin, and it'll be a little bit of a different format because I'm going to be leading it together with Blazer Brody, everyone's Brody. Brody is basically brother and buddy together. That's what a Brody is. So that will be Be'ezrat Hashem at 8:30. And we will be hosting, popping into the sukkah. We will be seeing, meeting with Nachum Siegel out in New York, Daniel Ahaviel out in Telstone, and Lenny Solomon, who Baruch Hashem just recovered from pneumonia, from COVID. Lenny Solomon of Shlakrock. That's tonight. Tomorrow, we continue with a wonderful program in the afternoon, starting at 4 p.m. again, learning till 6. And then at night again, we'll have the privilege of opening up our Ushpezin of tomorrow night, hopefully Bezrat Hashem, with Rabbi Moshe Weinberger and many other very special and precious musicians and artists and rabbis and teachers. If you are able to help to sponsor any of these events, B'simcha Rabba, you can go to the ShlomoKatzProject.com, and there's a donate button over there. It's helping us also think about the day after Sukkot, because there's such a hunger to stay connected and to keep on learning, to keep on growing, to keep on inspiring, and to keep on being inspired. And so many people are doing so many wonderful things. So stay in touch with us. In another minute, we will have Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky. I am going to just grab the guitar and we will sing a quick nigun and then continue. So 1 second, I'll be right with you. Harachamanu Yakim Lanu Sukas David Anoi Foles Harachamanu Yakim Lanu Sukas David Anoi Foles Oh Rachaman Yakim Lanu Sukkot David, Hanefales, oh, Lachamon, Uyakim Lanu, Sukkot David, Hanefales, I la la da di da 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 da. Oh, the summer we are Kimlanu, the Sukkot David, only forest. Oh, the summer we are Kimlanu, the Sukkot David, only forest. I la 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 So I'm just going to check now to see, do we have Rebbetzin Yehudis? Is she with us? I believe I see her in the room.
Abba, never hear better again in Zoom. We were watching.
1 second. Shimon, are you able to spotlight Rebbetzin Yehudis? Oh, Baruch Hashem. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Mamash, from all our hearts. Thank you so much for being with us. Yimala Hashem kol mishal u'slibech l'tova. The screen is yours.
Okay, so it's so good to see everybody, those who I can see. I'm sorry that I'm not in the sukkah right now. I felt like I'm not going to throw my husband out of the sukkah. It's his prerogative to be in the sukkah. And also the kids who are next door suddenly can sometimes, like blast the music totally in the sukkah next door completely without warning, really, really loud. So I said, I'm going to go into the house, even though I look like I'm at the Kinneret. I'm not at the Kinneret, I'm in my room, but the aura of the sukkah, the light of the sukkah, I hope will be with us. Okay. So first of all, good moed, moedim l'simcha. It should really be a good moed, right? And it is a good moed, it's the best. And even though, not even though.
You made this?
Interesting. Mm-hmm. So we have, it's not an even though, it's like there are all these different kinds of, like, look what we're doing now, this, like Zoom Farbringen Sukkah, right? And in a normal time, we wouldn't be doing that because we'd be hosting our guests and hosting each other. And so HaKadosh Baruch Hu, closing down one set of opportunities, has opened up other sets of opportunities, different opportunities, which is that we're doing this, which was totally, something that comes from, it's a solution that comes from, it's born out from the particulars of the challenge. And sometimes that's what Hashem wants from us, right? To come to the solution that comes specifically via the constriction. So I feel like it's a big expansion that comes via the constriction, and Hashem should help us ever to expand. That's the Rebbe's Yortzeit today, Rabbi Nachman's Yortzeit. And when Judy's idea, so Yishakach to Judy Broad, if she's out there. Yes, I see Judith there. So thank you for the initiative and asking me to get in touch with Reb Shlomo Katz so that I could participate. The Rebbe's Yortzeit, Nitzachti v'Natzeach, right? It's the day of Netzach, fourth day of Sukkot, the third day of HaMoed, Chai Tishrei, And Rabbi Nachman's Yortzeit, here we are in it, in the midst of it. So I wanted to share some teachings of his, especially relating to Netzach. So this is the day of Netzach of the Ushpezin, Moshe Rabbeinu. And in order to get more of a picture of it, at least from, in tying it together with the Yortzeit, I would like to take a look at the last major lesson Rabbi Nachman taught in his life, which was delivered on the Rosh Hashanah prior to his passing. The last 3 Rosh Hashanahs of his life, those lessons are called Tiku. The opening verse of each of those lessons is Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagenu. Blow the shofar on the new month. B'kesel yom chagenu. It's covered up. There's something being covered. The Yom Chagenu, on the day of our festival. And those are the introductory lines, those introductory verses, and then each one of them starts off of those last 3 long Rosh Hashanah lessons of the last 3 years of his life. They start off with a different title. The first one is Tiku Emuna. That was 3 Rosh Hashanahs prior to his passing. The second one was Tiku Memshala. Tiku, blow the shofar, Memshala, rulership. And on the final one, which was very close to the time of his passing, it was Tiku Tochacha. Blow, sound the shofar, Tochacha, rebuke. Now it's very interesting that the tzaddik, knowing that he was going to be passing and not too much longer, because his physical condition was already so debilitated, that by then he could barely talk. He had such a terrible cough. His tuberculosis he had almost fully succumbed to the tuberculosis. And he was so weak that when he tried to speak, he could barely get out words. But that last Rosh Hashanah, he managed to give an exceedingly long and complex lesson, which Reb Nosson, his great student, records as having been a kind of miracle, that he managed to speak at such length and with so much clarity and so much focus and such divine words, considering how very ill he was, and that he could barely move from the bed. Now, the last lesson, this final long lesson of Tochacha, rebuke, you say, well, what kind of words of rebuke does the tzaddik leave the world with? What are his big words of rebuke? So one of the focal points of the lesson, there's many interwoven parts of it, but one of the focal points, which is at the beginning and the end, is what is the nature of rebuke? What's the job of a Jewish leader? What does it mean to really be a shepherd of the souls of the Jewish people? And how important is it for us all to aspire to leadership of the caliber of Moshe Rabbeinu's? So it's the day of Moshe, the day of Netzach, Rabbi Nachman's Yortzeit, and he shares with us some principles that we all, I think, have something to take from it. Okay, so I'm starting off the beginning of the lesson. Tiku b'chodesh shofar b'kesel yom chagenu ki chok liYisrael hu mishpat leYaakov is the opening verse, which is from Tehillim Pei Aleph. Blow on the month, the new month, which means new month meaning the year. The shofar, it's a covering up of the day of our festival. That means that's the reference the sages tell us we don't declare the Chodesh ahead of time. We don't bench the Chodesh. We don't bless the new month the week before. Ki chok liYisrael hu mishpat leElokei Yaakov. It is an inviolate law for Yisrael and the din of the God of the Jewish people. Even though rebuke is a very, very important thing, and nevertheless, and of course, everyone has an obligation to try and put their fellow Jew on the right path. It's a Torah. It's a mitzvah from the Torah, right? Like it says in Sefer Vayikra. When we see that we're somehow gone astray, nevertheless, not everyone is fit to offer rebuke to another. Even Rabbi Akiva, who was of the great generation of Tanoim, who lived 2,000 years ago, even he said, I have questions as to whether anybody in this generation is really fit to give rebuke. It's a very big responsibility. Rav Yitzhak Petterberger said, if you give rebuke, if you chastise somebody and you're guilty of the same sin, and most of us are often engaged in psychological projection in any case, but if we're guilty of the same sin, so he says it's nothing more than onat dvarim, nothing more than verbal abuse. And Chofetz Chaim also includes some references to this as well, in being the conditions under which one is permitted to say certain things that are negative about another person. You can't be guilty of the thing yourself. So already we know that a mochiach, somebody whose job it is, to take on this great job, which is a mitzvah, to direct other people to do right, all with the best intentions. Not everybody is fit to do such a thing. Even Rabbi Akiva had questions about it. Rabbi Akiva amar zot b'doro. If Rabbi Akiva said that in his time, kol shekem b'dor hazeh shel achshav, how much more is this the truth? Nowadays, ki kshemochiach eino ro'eh le'ochiach. See, now, instead of talking about it from the halachic standpoint of, is it just halbanat panim in that case? Is it just embarrassing to the other person? Does it not work? Is it ineffective? The pragmatic aspects of being being unfit to tell other people, to steer other people to the right and the good. He's not going to approach it from the pragmatic or even the halachic perspective. It's going to go right to the core of the spiritual consequences of hearing rebuke from somebody who's not fit to rebuke you. What does he say? Not only is it not helpful to hear words of rebuke from such a person, what it does instead is it causes the souls of those who are receiving the rebuke to mav'ish recham. It's a strong language, but he's borrowing it from the Medrash. It means if they were smelling bad to start with, they smell even worse afterwards. It stirs the pot. And if we think about what it feels like to receive rebuke from somebody who, as soon as they open their mouths, we have a kitrug against them. We could say, oh, you're no better. And what is it? It awakens within us our own bad midot, right? Our own frailties and our own tendencies to do wrong and be fault finding. So someone else is fault finding with me if it's not done the way it should be. So then it winds up actually intensifying my own tendency to be defensive, to take the best defense, which is a good offense, and even worse, think about, let's say, the child who keeps hearing, you're this and you're that, you did this wrong and that wrong, and then they become very identified with the wrongdoing. It's possible for them to be very identified, and so that's also kind of lahav ish recham, that whatever is negative inside of them, it gets intensified. That's what happens when it's done wrong. By being we'll call it the wrong mochiach, the wrong rebuker. So the consequences are more than just the pragmatic, it doesn't work, or the halachic, you have no right, but actually it can cause more harm than good. And he gives us a physical example. He says it's like when you have something that doesn't smell good and you sort of leave it in the corner, so then it's not disturbed and it doesn't make, its molecules don't start to circulate. But you start poking at it, this pile of zevel in the corner, and it starts to waft around, and then it really doesn't smell good. Start messing with it. It's like you stir the pot without actually having a means to remove the source of the ailment, of the illness. Now, what happens? So then he says, well, what happens then? Well, he says, nechleshet haneshama. So then the person who's received the rebuke is, instead of being empowered to do good, to be their best self, so they get weakened. They feel trashed. Don't feel good about themselves. And Rabbi Nachman, by starting off this final long lesson is telling us what is the nature of incorrect Jewish leadership. Incorrect Jewish leadership points out our flaws to us without providing us with enough spiritual empowerment to be able to make the corrections that we need to make. Clearly, a Jewish leader of the caliber of Moshe has to be able to give musar, has to be able to give direction, but he has to be able to give it like Moshe Rabbeinu gave it. Moshe Rabbeinu, it says at the beginning of Sefer Dvarim, Rashi brings from the Medrash right there. Moshe Rabbeinu, before he passed away, he gave us musar. He did. The whole beginning of the Sefer Dvarim is musar, right? Di Zahav and so on, all the place names that don't even really belong there. They're not really even part of the narrative. They're so curious what they're doing there. And they seem to be this long preliminary right at the beginning of Sefer Dvarim, this long preliminary that is Vayidaber Moshe. Moshe spoke these strong words to the Jewish people. When we got to Arvot Moav, when we got to the plains of Moav, very soon before his passing, he started to speak them at the beginning of Rosh Chodesh Shvat. He passed away 40 days later. So he's giving us a dibur, but then it's only afterwards, after all of the place names, which we can't all be in at the moment that he's telling us all of this, right? It appears to be part of the speech, but it's not really. It's an allusion to, as Rashi says, all of the 40 years of challenges that the Jewish people challenged Hashem, but he doesn't say it outright. He says it in code so that we should be able to hear the message without being overwhelmed by the message. And the sages carried over a verse from Shir Hashirim in order to clarify what kind of musar this is, and what they said was Nirdi Natan Recho. Lohiv ish recho natan recho. It says in the verse in Shir Hashirim, my nard, my spikenard, it means one of the spices, one of the aromatics, it gave off its scent, and the sages said, well, that's an allusion to the lighting of the incense at the Chet HaEgel, at the sin of the golden calf. But Moshe was very careful. When he alluded to the sin of the golden calf, he did it in such a subtle way that instead of hiv ish recho, we would think the verse would say, if speaking about something so negative, my spikenard gave off its stench. Instead, it says it gave off its aroma. Meaning he alluded, Moshe Rabbeinu alluded to our wrongdoing in a way that instead of making us feel like collapsing from the pressure and the weight of all that we had done wrong, which was such a terrible sin, he was able to allude to it in such a way that it brought our neshama to a greater flowering and a greater giving off of what's called the reach tov, instead of succumbing under the weight of the pressure of guilt and shame for having done such a terrible thing as even the Chet HaEgel. Moshe Rabbeinu had the secret. He had this secret. And every Jewish leader has to know this secret of how to give tochacha, how to redirect the Jewish people into the right path with empowerment and not causing us to be bowed and humiliated under the weight of our own sin. And that's what we're waiting for. Mashiach, that's his job. Mashiach is supposed to carry forward the task of Moshe Rabbeinu, which was to lead and to help us to flower, to do tshuva, like we do through Sukkot. Sukkot is still part of Yom Noraim, but they are Yamim Noraim Smechim. They are very awesome days, in the Sukkah, very awesome days of tshuva, but it's Gilu B'Ra'ada, still doing tshuva, just like it's Yom Kippur, just like it's Rosh Hashanah, still doing tshuva, but doing tshuva embraced, doing tshuva empowered, doing tshuva with pleasure, doing tshuva through holy meals and music and joy, right, in the Sukkah. So we have this tshuva that Mashiach is supposed to bring to us, which is just following the model of Moshe Rabbeinu, of how to bring the entire world, forget just the Jewish people, but the whole world, to be connected purely with HaKadosh Baruch Hu and focused purely on the service of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through everything that we do, and to bring us to tshuva in such a way that it's chesed, that his words feel like a chesed, not like somebody taking a stick and hitting you, but somebody saying, think not the stick, it's not a stick, it's a flute. And instead of hitting you with it, he pulls it out to the side and he starts to play on it. And when he plays on it, it makes this music, and the music makes you want to join him and come along with him. And that's called the Tochacha of Mashiach. Mashiach is a spark and it's not the spark, he's the finalization and completion of the spirit of the soul of Moshe Rabbeinu. And when he's able to do this, not only for the Jewish people, for the whole world, that's when the world will change. When Tochacha sounds to us like music, when it strengthens us and brings us to the best part of ourselves, where we willingly and lovingly follow along with the music of Tochacha, of proper rebuke, given properly by the right person, this means that the world is ready to change. And so it's not just that the world has to be ready, you really have to have the person, Like you need the person to come along who has this sod, who knows this sod, how to do it. That the words that pull us to tshuva don't feel like stones being thrown on us, but are instead precious gems that are like laid out in front of us, like one in front of the other, like Hansel and Gretel following the way home or something, the trail that follow that when we're just picking them up, one gem, another gem, another gem, another gem. And that's the pathway that Rabbi Nachman is clarifying. He says that was the way of Moshe. That's the way of all of the Emes Tzadikim. That's going to be the way of Mashiach. And we call this an evolving and expanding situation. And it is called, in the lesson, it's called the Shir Pashut Kaful Mishulash Meuba, a single, double, tripled, quadrupled song. Now, the language of this single, double, triple, quadruple, that it's expansive, but it's really an allusion to Kabbalistic concepts of laying out the Shem Havaya, Hashem's great name, as first a Yud, and then it's a Yud and a Hey, and then it's a Yud and a Hey and a Vav, and then it's a Yud and a Hey and a Vav and a Hey. Altogether, you have 10 letters, and the sum total of them written out in this way, when they're written out fully, in this full expansion, is the Gematria of 72, which is Chesed. So it means this revelation that comes gradually, right? Little by little, a Yud, and then a Yud and a Hey, and then a Yud and a Hey and a Vav. So it's a gradual, evolving situation of a certain kind of consciousness entering into the world where we learn that we don't change people by hitting them with the stick. Rather, we pick up the stick and make a halal inside of it and drill holes into it until it's a flute, and we play this flute until people want to come and join us in something that's good and beautiful, pleasurable, delightful, cleansing, and freeing. That's called getting ready for Geula. So this lesson, Tiku Tochacha, which sounds like it's about something harsh, actually is about something very, very beautiful. He says, then the souls receive the nourishment that they receive, and they're like a garden, and they give off all of their beautiful fragrance, and they're so empowered, and they're so strong, and they have such sgulot, these beautiful souls, when they're being all that they can be, that they're able to receive Tochacha from the Mochiach, from a proper Mochiach, not somebody who just gets it in their head that they want to give you a Perek Musar. Rather, they are people who love you, and because that's the whole idea, it has to be rooted in love, it has to be chesed, to be able to share out what is the way that is not coming from a place of self-righteousness, not coming from the place of projection. I'm correcting you because I can't bother to correct myself. That's the easiest, that's the one that we fall into all the time. Easier for me to tell you what to do than it is for me to tell myself what to do. Moshe Rabbeinu, all of the true tzaddikim, Mashiach himself, will come clean from this. They are not going to come to us with tochacha weighed down by the baggage, the kind of language that we use, by this baggage of ego and self. They're coming just to do the job purely. And when they come purely, we respond purely. So that's really one of the fundamental ideas in the lesson. And why did Rabbi Nachman feel that it was so necessary? He knew that he was not long for this world. Why did he feel that this was so necessary to give this over so close to his passing? Well, I don't have too much time because I'm stopping at 5, but I want to switch gears and tell you a little something from HaMoed. Now, Reb Nosson prepared a biography of Rabbi Nachman called Hamayam, and in the introduction he says it's Hamayam, the lives of Rabbi Nachman. Chayei is plural. He said he lived many lives. And he doesn't mean Gilgulim. He meant he had the secret. He knew the secret of starting again and again and again. I feel 1,000 times in the same day to be able to start again, take a fresh breath, start again, fresh, all the time. So even though he was so young when he left this world, he had lived such a full, big life. Now, Reb Nosson, in the very last section of the biographical, the main biographical part of Hamayam, because after that, there's a lot about his avoda, the way in which he served God. But in terms of the straightforward chronology, so section 229 is the last segment, and it deals with Rabbi Nachman's passing. Now, that segment starts off with something very, when you're a chassid, when you read this, it's heartbreaking. He starts off by saying, certainly it was the Rebbe's intention that he would accomplish everything he set out to accomplish in his lifetime. Surely that was the indication that he gave to us. Now, when Reb Nosson writes something like that, he means he intended, Rabbi Nachman said certain things, between me and Mashiach, there won't be any chidush. He intended in his lifetime, which was quite short, to give over all of the necessary kelim and teachings that the Jewish people would require for doing collective and personal avodah necessary until Mashiach arrives. That was his intention. Now, anybody who has spent their time learning Rabbi Nachman's works sees just how full the teachings he left, how full they are, with such every pathway of avodah that you could possibly think of. It's all there. And I'm not speaking like somebody who doesn't learn other works. I learn other Sfarim, and I love the Musa tradition, all the works of Hasidus. But one of the things in terms of avodah that you find in Rabbi Nachman's work is just how dense it is with etzot. It is dense with etzot. That's actually the language of advice. It means what to do, how to do it. Now, the density alone can be sometimes so overwhelming. You say, how many times did he see this is the ikr? This is the main thing. This is all the alakol. He used this language of his bodudus is the most important thing. Hafat is the most important thing. Chatzos is the most important thing. There's so many different things that are the most important thing. In his short lifetime, he compressed into his work pathways of avodah that basically run the full gamut of every place you could expend yourself in avodat Hashem, in divine service. And so these eitzot are, they're like, let's see, I see that Sarah is there. You're teaching Rav Kook, right? If you didn't learn the Kutei Moran very carefully, can you understand what Rav Kook is saying? No, you can't, because he relies on it so much. If you learn Nesiv Hashem, can you understand it really well in terms of avodah if you didn't really learn also the Kutei Lachas very well? No, not really. And that's the way it is with making use of all of these other books. There's so much in Rabbi Nachman's own work and what Reb Nosson expanded upon it. Now, so go back to Hamayam. Reb Nosson writes that the Rebbe certainly anticipated and made it clear to us he was expecting that he would complete his work. What does he mean, complete his work? What does it mean to complete your work? Well, at least before the death of his son Shlomo Ephraim, he was making it clear to his students that he anticipated that they would soon see the arrival of Mashiach, that Mashiach was coming soon. And after the death of that child, Shlomo Ephraim, he lost his son, he lost his wife, and then his tuberculosis intensified, and he passed away not that many years later. Now, at a certain point, he switched gears. So Reb Nosson says in HaMoed, the Rebbe said to me, "Ma, lo gamarti? What, I didn't complete the work I set out to do? I did." Now, close to the end of his life, what did he say very famously? Nitzachti v'anatzech. I was victorious, I will be victorious. Gamarti, I completed, va'igmor, I will complete. Now, the way that Breslovers have understood this he, through great self-sacrifice, embedded into his teachings all of the tools that are necessary to be able to do what we have to do until Mashiach comes. That's called Gamarti. That's called Nitzachti. I was victorious. Here's the day of Netzach. I was victorious. I did complete. But what did he mean by Anatzach, Egmor? I will be victorious. I will complete. What does it mean? How can you be both, having been victorious and also you will be victorious? If you're already victorious, if you've already won the fight, so then what are you saying? I'm going to be victorious in the future? Like it's already done. Gamarti, I completed. Va'egmor. Why do you need an egmor after that? What do you need a completion after that if you've already completed? So you see there's two different parts to it. We have the work that he did and left in the world, and then we have the further development and evolution of the spread of his teachings and concepts and ideas as they would percolate through his students and his writings until the time that Mashiach comes. It has to do not only with changes. I'm finished in 1 second, Reb Shlomo, I'll be done in a sec. It has to do not only with our own personal avoda, but also the world changing in very significant ways. Rabbi Nachman set something in motion, which was actually completed through his passing, which happened today. It was completed through his passing because a tzaddik, when he leaves the world, pishnayim he gives, he's able to share from his ruach, from his essence, and from his desires, his yearnings, and all of his teaching and his Torah. He's able to give over twice as much as he could at any other time. And so Rabbi Nachman on his yurtzeit, as we know, the souls are always very, very strong on their day, on the big day. So it's his day of nitzachon. Nitzachti, I was victorious, I managed. It's like, Khamayim, Rabbi Nachman, in such a short lifetime, under 40 years, every time I think about how old he was when he passed, I can't believe that in this time already 10 years older than he was when he passed, such a busha v'cherpa, to be already 10 years older than he was when he left this world, and to have accomplished so little, when he did so much in the time that was given to him. What a neshama was brought down into the world. But nitzachta, Rebbe, Khamayim, you put down into this world everything that needed to be done, and now it's up to us to continue the work that he left behind as we move towards the nitzachon amiti, the ultimate victory of Nishmas Moshe, of the soul of Moshe, in its final manifestation in Mashiach himself, to draw the world to the good through the chesed, the music, the unfolding and evolving sweetness and goodness of emes tochacha, genuine rebuke that doesn't weaken us, but rather strengthens us and empowers us until we become the fullness of ourselves. And if it was only women here, I'd be happy to sing a few bars of Chidush Kamoisai, but I'm going to leave it to Reb Shlomo, give them a little Chidush Kamoisai. But Lo haya velo nivra echad kamoisai. There has not been and there never will be a neshama, such a chidush like this Rabbi Nachman. Ashreinu matov chelkeinu.
Chidush kamoisai me'olam lo hayam me'olam me'yad olam me'alfei olamai shmai ne'elam ويسكن الصيلام كي زكول الأدم أي هودا بينو مكا خخما وامرتم كل خي حدينينو مكا خخما لا إيش بني إسرائيل وإيش خي نخال نيفيا مكا خخما Thank you so much, Rebbetzin Yehudis Golshevsky. Thank you, Judy, for making sure this could happen. It's so sweet. It's such a schut. This is so wonderful. Thank you so much. Tilchi Michael Ilchael with his chachus and his chaskus ad blidai. Yedid Nafshi from Ramot. We're in Ramot, right? We're in Ramot?
Live in Ramot, yeah.
You're live in Ramot. Look at that. I want everyone here to know that Reb Davido was in our, actually where I'm sitting right now in our garden in our sukkah. Feels like 5 years ago. I think it was just a few weeks ago. I don't know. It wasn't that long.
Always hanging out in your backyard.
You are always in the backyard. And it was a beautiful evening where the chevra here got so much a time of my Abba always says to me, and my brother, he said, whenever you do a concert, leave them hungry, meaning like, don't give to, we could have been drinking from your fountain that whole night, Reb Davido, and I'm just happy for this chus that we have, and I don't want to take another second away from this chus of you being with the chevra that are with us online. Thank you so much. I love you. A good Hamayam.
Good Hamayam, thank you. Thanks for inviting me. Special treat. Mamash, a special treat to be here. Okay, so maybe we'll learn a little bit. Maybe we'll sing a few nigunim. I don't know if we'll have time. We'll see what the time allows for. We should start with a nigun. I think it's proper to start with a nigun. You have to know your audience. You have to know your chevra. Okay, so this nigun is an older nigun that now has newer words, and the words, even though the melody came down many years ago when I was before we came to Eretz Yisrael about 8-9 years ago. My wife and my children, we just spent a few years in the States getting some medical treatment. Baruch Hashem, doing a lot better. I had T-cell lymphoma, and these are dvarim that are already past us, Baruch Hashem. But when I was there, I picked up, Al Naros Bavel. While I was sitting there, I picked up something that these words also came and joined together with the melody that was written so long. It was many years it was waiting to come and join up together. So I'll try to sing this together, and I hope that it'll come through, over Zoom. אמרתי מחר אתחיל ואתמול אותו דבר, השעון כמו אדון, יש לו רצון ודרך משלו, השמש מתביישת ואני סובל מכובד ראש. אמרתי מחר אלמד את למד מתוך סידור, בוא ניפגש ביחד, מחר חופשי להתעדכן. המסע הזה הוא כבד ואני מרגיש לי די לוחץ, היום אם בקולו תשמעו, היום אם בקולו תשמעו, היום אם בקולו תשמעו, היום אם תשמעו. אמרתי מחר אגמר et lamed lo lichos lev tahor barali lev tahor tzarich lachzor lama lidchof lemachar asher latchil meyod hayom im bekolo tishmeu hayom im bekolo tishmeu hayom im bekolo tishmeu hayom im tishmeu. All right, Chevra. So I thought I would maybe speak for a few minutes about Nisa Hamayam. I don't know if anyone's really been speaking about that so much. I've been thinking about it a lot. And it is Reb Nachman's Yurtzeit, so Rabbeinu said that a person should always speak from the place, the Nakuda that's shaykh to their heart at this moment. And this is what I'm thinking about, so I wanted to just share this. The Nisa Khamayim is a very strange thing. I'll start with a story that happened to one of my teachers, Rabbi Baruch Simon. Baruch Simon was he's a Rav. He's one of the Rosh Yeshiva in YU. I had the great fortune of learning perhaps Rov of the Niglas HaTorah that I know from him over the years. And when he had his first son, Yisrael Pinchas, he was in the hospital. He was in the hospital, his wife was recovering, the baby was recovering from that journey to this world. And it was Sukkot. He was born on Sukkot, and Rav Simon went down, Cholin u'misham shehen are pater min ha-sukkah, people who are sick and people who are taking care of them are pater from the sukkah, but if you can go down to the sukkah and grab a bite to eat. So in the hospital where he was in New York City, he went down to the sukkah, and lo and behold, he walked into the sukkah, there was a chassid in there. There was a chassid in there who was sitting eating a sandwich by himself, and Rav Simon sat down to opened up a little bag and started eating, and the two of them, as Jews do, started kibitzing and talking. Turned out that this chassid was a Babaver chassid, and he was also in the hospital for good news, Baruch Hashem. He also was having a baby, and Rav Simon asked him if he happened, perhaps he was at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva of the Rebbe in New York the night before, in Brooklyn. And the chassid said that he'd been there and shared what the Rebbe said, and this is what he said. The Rebbe shared the secret of Nisa Hamayim, or a secret of Nisa Hamayim. He said that, when you have a dignitary, you have someone chashuv coming to your house, you have someone you want to impress, they come to your house. So you want to make sure that when they come in, you have, nice dishes set, and you have good food, and everything should be just so, should be in a way where you want to make sure that you're impressing this person. And so if a king comes to your house, or if some other dignitary, a celebrity comes to your house, you want to try to, make them feel comfortable, but you also want to show off a little bit. And so it could be that when they come to the house, you'll offer them, you say, we've been saving this bottle of wine for a really special time, and Baruch Hashem, that special time has arrived. You're a special person, and we're here to celebrate together with you. And so you'll break open a bottle of wine, and you'll start to pour a little bit of wine for this person. He said, but if that dignitary, if that king, if that celebrity, if that person you're trying to show a time to happens to also be a relative of yours, maybe let's say your father, or a brother, then it's not as important anymore to try to show this person how chashuv you are by making sure that you have good wine and you have all the trappings of what it means to be an impressive person, but instead you just want to make sure that they're comfortable, and can I get you a glass of water? If your brother walks into the house, you don't have to break out the bottle of wine, because the relationship is already there so much so that it's enough to just give them a cup of water. And so the Babaver explained to my Rebbe, who then explained to me, that the secret of the Nisa Hamayam, this is what I want to speak about for the next 20 minutes or so. The secret of the Nisa Hamayam is coming to this place where a person is able to be so comfortable with Hashem, which is not for always. In fact, it's really only for Sukkot. A little bit, we say, whenever we do a mitzvah, we say the Taryag mitzvahs hataluyim ba, the 613 mitzvahs that are connected to this one mitzvah. And so there's a little bit of Sukkot in every mitzvah that we do. But the headquarters of this idea of feeling like I'm there with Hashem in such a way that I don't have to impress. I don't have to pour wine like I do the rest of the year, where I do Nisa Hayayin, where I pour wine on the Mizbeach, but it's enough just a little bit. Can I get you a cup of water? That after going through the rigorous work, after going through the work of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, we come to Sukkot and we have this beautiful relationship with Hashem, which is just, can I get you a cup of water? And so we pour on the Mizbeach a little bit of water instead of the important and the fancy wine. And maybe I want to explain on a deeper level what that's all about, how that's happening. So when Hashem created the world, on one of the days that Hashem created the world, He split the upper waters and the lower waters. That was not, according to our Torah, that was not a good day. It wasn't a day that was ra'oi, it wasn't worthy to have the word good said in the context of that day. And so we make up for it on Tuesday when there's a double good. When Hashem makes room for land, when He makes room for dry land, and there's going to be the possibility that a human being could walk on that dry land and restore order to a world where Hashem split the upper waters and the lower waters, that Hashem, so to speak, cast away part of creation. That Hashem took the world, which is primarily made up of water. I mean, there's so much water in the world. The human body is like over 80% water. There's so much water in the world, and Hashem took the upper waters and brought them close to Him, and in a very painful way pushed away the lower waters. Ad kidei kach that the Zohar describes that the reaction of the waters of that were cast away from Hashem, that they started crying, they were bochin, that we want. My daughter, I see my daughter. So the lower waters were crying, and they said, Anon meheve lies kabe malka. We want to be in front of the king. It's not fair. How come we should be cast away? We also want to be kamei malka. We also want to be in front of the king. Why should it be that we're so far away? And Hashem said something very interesting. Hashem said a nechama to the water. Chazal, not in the Zohar over there, but the Chazal in the Medrash Rabbah, in Bereshis, say that Hashem said to the water, don't worry, you'll have your way of coming back. We'll be able to reunite. We'll be able to come back together and be close again. And the way that we'll be able to come back and be close again is that every time any Jewish person anywhere in the world brings a korban, or collectively if the tzibur brings a korban, there's going to be an obligation that together with that korban, there has to be salt that's brought on the Mizbeach. Concurrent with any korban, there's a necessity to bring melach. And the melach, of course, comes from the ocean. And every time a Jew brings a korban, every time the human being, the room is made for the human being on that third day, when it rectifies what happened on the second day when we were cast away from Hashem. Anytime there's an opportunity to bring a korban, to come close to Hashem, Milashon Karov, then it's going to come together with salt, and that salt comes from the lower waters, Dafka. And so in that way, there's going to be a nechama for the lower waters, that they'll be able to come back, and they'll be able to reunite with Hashem anytime a Jew brings a korban. But then in addition to that, Hashem said, and also another thing, there's even going to be something called the Nisa Hamayam. There's even going to be something called the Nisa Hamayam, where I'm going to allow you to come and bring water, those lower waters that were separated, and to spill those onto the Mizbeach, down into these same pipes that go deep, deep, deep into the Yesod Hadavar of the entire world. And so the tzaddikim are trying to figure out why it is that we need two different tikkunim. Why do we need salt on the karbanos, which comes from the ocean, the salt, a little sea salt, and Himalayan? And why is it that we need, in addition to this second rectification of the sea salt, we need this primary rectification of the Nisa Hamayam? What's the difference between the two of them? Gewalt. So, by the Nisa Hamayam, when they did this preparatory celebration for the Nisa Hamayam, the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, that Shlomo has been leading us so sweet every night, I can't get enough, and introducing us to all these people that some of them we've known for a long time, and some of them I said, how did I not know them my whole life? And the Simchas Beis HaShoeva was a celebration of the drawing of the water. There's only a handful of places where Chazal described dancing taking place. Dancing. This mysterious thing of dancing. It takes place by a chasana, Ketzad Meraktim Lifnei Akala. The venue. In history we have dancing. We have Miriam led the Nashim Tzidkanios in dancing. We have different places where there's dancing. David HaMelech danced before the Aron. But a venue where we find consistently where there's dancing, we find by a wedding, Simchas Chasam Dekala, Ketzad Meraktim Lifnei Akala in the Mishnah. And we also find it by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva that they would dance throughout the whole night. The righteous would dance. So what's the secret of dancing? So listen to the secret of dancing. This is mamish. The least tangible things in the world. How do we figure out what's the least tangible, what's the most ruchani things that exist in the world? So if you look in the Gemara tells us that there's a prohibition of benefiting from the Beis HaMikdash. If I go up, even some people, so there's different traditions here. There's some tzaddikim who are very makbid. They go to the kotel, they melt into the kotel. They try to get deep. They try to imprint themselves onto the kotel. Some people were makbid. They didn't even touch the kotel, and that's part of a discussion. Maybe the kotel is not necessarily included in this, but there's a whole category there's a whole masechta called Maseches Me'ila of benefiting from the Beis HaMikdash, benefiting from Kodshim. Taking a ride on an animal that's already mukdash for being a korban, or scratching yourself up against the wall of the Beis HaMikdash. These are not things that you're allowed to benefit from the Beis HaMikdash in that way. It's called Me'ila. So the Gemara says, at least in two places that I'm aware of, in Me'ila and in Mesechus Pesachim as well, that there's three things that there's no such thing as Me'ila with. Number one, by Chol. Number two, by Mara. And number three, by Reach. If you walk into the Beis HaMikdash, you hear the beautiful sounds of the Leviim singing. You get hana from that. You're not stealing from the Beis HaMikdash. It's not considered a tangible benefit enough that you could be chayiv for Me'ila. You walk into the Beis HaMikdash, you smell the amazing smells in the Beis HaMikdash, whether it's the ketores or the barbecue, whatever it is that you're smelling. There's no Me'ila in the smell because, again, it's intangible on a certain level. You walk into the Beis HaMikdash and the Chazal describe in Maseches Midos and Maseches Tamid how in the Beis HaMikdash they had these amazing things hanging from the ceiling. They had these golden grapevines made out of pure gold hanging from there. People could donate, a single gargir, a single, grape or a whole cluster or a leaf. And you walk in and you're just blown away by the beauty of the Beis HaMikdash. There's no Me'ila. You're not benefiting from the Beis HaMikdash because it's so intangible. How exactly are you taking from it? But from those three, back to the old game we used to play when we were children, one of these things is not like the other. And the one of these things that's not like the other is the kol, is the sound. This is the Torah from the Rosh Hashiva of Hutner. Rav Hutner said that, when you smell something delicious, it's true, it's kind of intangible. There's no me'ila, but you do make a bracha. There's a bori isve, atze, bore, mine, besamim. There's something. You're being nenem in olam hazeh. When a person sees a beautiful person or sees a beautiful sight, osem asa bereshis, we do make a bracha because you're nenem in olam hazeh, and it's aser lenene in olam hazeh b'lo bracha. But you hear Shlomo sing a beautiful niggin, or you hear somebody sing. You hear Benji sing a beautiful niggin, and. Tnu kavod l'Torah, you know what I'm saying? You hear you hear someone sing a beautiful niggin and you don't make a bracha on it. Because music, it turns out, is the most ruchani thing that exists in the world. Not only is there no me'ila, because it's not clear how you're exactly benefiting from it, but you don't even make a bracha over it, Rav Hutner says. And Gewalt, what's the most gashmi thing in the world? What's the most physical thing in the whole world? The most physical thing in the whole world is the human being, is the body of a human being. A body without an neshama is the avia avos hatoma. You know, if you just have I'm sorry to say the word, it's such a not nice word, but you have a corpse. A corpse, it's the most shtick gashmi thing in the whole world. And Gewalt, what's dancing? That happens by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. The Simchas Beis HaShoeva, we dance because dancing is where you start to move the body. You start to move that shtick gashmias. You start to move that physical thing to the tempo and to the rhythm and to the sound and the music of the most ruchani thing in the world. It's the coming together of the most yesh thing in the world. The most yesh, this is, I'm so yesh, there's so much I am. And music is so ayin. It's so ethereal. It's so beyond. And when I start to move my yesh to the sound of the ayin, then that is the greatest simcha. That's the most unbelievable coming together that happens. And that's what the dancing is. When you have this yesh and ayin come together, this is a return. That's why the Gemara says that people used to just be like, you know, dropping like flies by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva, like dropping on the floor and reciting prophecy. Because the yesh, the human being, and the ayin, ein od milvado, Hashem, who is called ayin because he's coming from that place before there was anything, but not because he's nothing. Like the masters of Chabad explained. That Hashem is just that, he comes straight into the yesh by the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. And so the Lubavitch Rebbe explained in a letter to one of his Hasidim, he explained to a Chassid who asked this question, why is it that we need these two tikkunim? Sometimes, sometimes it's enough to know that I come from Hashem. Sometimes it's enough to know that Hashem created me. It's enough to know that Hashem is the Borei Olam. Hashem is the boss. And I am shaykh to him because he created me. And that's enough. I walk around, that's already a big level. A person is aware of the fact that Hashem created them and they're paying attention to that, they're tuned into that. That's already that's a big success. But sometimes it's not enough to know that Hashem just created me. I have to know that mamish, I'm a piece of Hashem. Not that I come from Hashem. Not that I'm a derivative from Hashem. But that I'm etzem with Hashem 100%. That the yesh and the ayin just melt into each other together, and that's what the Simchas Beis HaShoeva is. That it's enough throughout the rest of the year when I'm pouring wine and I'm trying to impress Hashem, and I'm trying to live this relationship, and that's a very big part of Avodas Hashem. Don't get me wrong, that's a serious part of Avodas Hashem, that I have to impress Hashem. I have to put on a good show. I have to make sure that I do what I cross all the lines and dot all the I's, and I have to make sure that everything is exactly the way that it has to be. But there are certain times in life where it's not enough to just know that I derive from Hashem and I have to impress Him with the wine. On the days when I try to impress Hashem with the wine, I bring salt with every carbon. Because salt derives from the lower waters. And I'm bringing something that derives from the lower waters back to Hashem. I'm bringing something that comes from the lower waters, but isn't the lower water itself. And I bring that back to Hashem and I say, that which I also derive from you, Hashem, and I want to come close to you in the same way that everything in creation is yearning to come close to you through the lower waters, want to come back to you. And so the salt which derives from the lower waters, I bring with every carbon every single day. But then we come to the Yontif of Sukkot. We come to the Yontif of Sukkot, and Dafka we come to the Hilula of Reb Nachman. And Reb Nachman was teaching the whole world how to just be a shtik etzem of Hashem. To be a little piece of Hashem. That a little bit of a bislas eichgut, a little bit of water, just to pour a little bit, can I get you a cup of water? And the thing is that on Sukkot, when we pour by the Nisa Hamayam, we're not pouring something which derives from the lower waters. We're bringing the lower waters itself back to Hashem. The salt derives from the lower waters. That's one way of relating to Hashem, but there's a deeper way of relating to Hashem, which is to say that I don't just derive from you, I am you. There's only you, and there's only that's it. And so by Sukkot, when we come back to Hashem in this way of the lower waters returning to Hashem, we enter into the Sukkah and we do a dance when we're celebrating the return of these lower waters. The dance of Yesh and Ayin coming together, the dance of these two things coming together. So I'm going to end where I see I'm running out of time so quickly. And really, I want to spend more time with you, and maybe another time. But as we ended, so we shall begin. And I'll sing one last little niggin, and then and we'll have to sign off for now. But there's so much more to speak about this inyan and how important it is. Everybody's feeling this right now. Hayom in bekolo tishmo, like we just sang. If we could just be here today, right now, and to recognize that we have everything. We don't need to prove anything to Hashem as we go through Sukkot Mamish. Less karbanos every day. We start off with like a lot of karbanos on the first day. Every day it's like a little bit less karbanos. We don't need it until we finally get to Shmini Atzeres, and we put away the lulav and esrog. We put away everything. We're just like, what's the mitzvah of Shmini Atzeres? It's just to be with Hashem, just to bring ourselves to Hashem. That's the whole thing. So I want to sing a niggin while we're still in the sukkah that I wrote also in a sukkah together with my daughter and my niece. And then we'll turn it back over to the Chevra. Harachaman, Harachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, Rachaman, Rachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, Rachaman, Rachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, Rachaman, Rachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, V'sechem Zena, Eineinu B'shuvcha L'tzion, B'rachamim, Oy B'sechem Zena, Rachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, Rachaman, Rachaman, Yakim La'anu, Sukas David Hanofales, V'sechem Zena, Ay berachamim, ay b'sechezena, ay eineinu b'shuv chalitzion, ay berachamim. Good Moed.
Good Moed, Davido. Reb Davido, thank you. Be'umka Daliba, thank you so much. What a treat. We should have many more opportunities to learn, to sing, to be close, to even talk about what that means to be close together. And I just know I feel closer after being with you. Whatever that means, I just feel closer. Whatever it means. But I'm so happy you're home. So happy in your Eretz Yisrael. And it should be not too long until we're back in the garden here, back in your garden, wherever it is. So much love. Good morning. Thank you. Dearest Chaverim, without further ado, I would love for you to meet a precious, precious neshama who has such beautiful Torah to give over. And I'm so happy and I'm so honored that he's here with us to share a little bit of his heart. And I feel like we're in the, like I always feel like we're in a mikvah in Sukkot, but with these teachers that we have the privilege of learning with, it just feels like we're just refusing to come out of the mikvah. And I just want to prepare everyone for your next tefillah, your next immersion. But with all, and I mean that very seriously, but I just want to give Reb Moshe Gersh the bracha, that Be'ezer Hashem, Yafutzel Mayin Osav, Chutza v'Pnima, Pnima v'Chutza, Chutza v'Pnima, Pnima v'Chutza. So Bechavod Rav, Reb Moshe, are you with us?
Amen. Amen to your brachas.
Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us. How's your Yom so far?
I mean, I don't know how it couldn't be better. We get to sit in the sukkah, spend time with family. We don't have to go anywhere. We can literally stay in our sukkah the whole time. It's amazing.
Mamish.
It's special chag.
Mamish. The screen is yours, my brother. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Reb Shlomo. It's pretty amazing. Earlier today, I was speaking with a friend of mine, and I mentioned that I was going to be teaching in your sukkah digitally, and said, Reb Shlomo, he's a makabetz nidchei Yisrael. He's a makabetz nidchei Yisrael. The person who brings people together. He brings Klal Yisrael together, brings people back. And it's so fitting that this event should take place in your sukkah, in your digital sukkah, with which is Chag HaAsif, of a time of everybody coming together, and that it should be one day a sukkah achas, and we should be able to do it in the same Daled Amos, and we should be able to do it in with the simcha in person. But it's a schus, it's a pleasure, it's a privilege, an honor to be a part of anything that you're doing, and Be'ezer Hashem should really, really be lit to Ellis, all these conversations. I'm very excited. I don't know how I can't be excited. It's Sukkot. It's the Chag of excited. It's the Zman Simchaseinu, the Zman where we are, more than anything, we're able to do the things and be the person that we're meant to be. And I wanna speak about simcha. I wanna speak about joy and happiness in a real way, in a deep way. About 6 months ago, I had the privilege of starting a YouTube channel. I don't know if it's a privilege or a curse. I don't know how you look at it, but it was new and it was different, and it had come to me. I had felt like it was the right time to start sharing Torah online, and my mentors and my friends were all very much so behind it and for it. And Baruch Hashem, after a little bit, it had picked up some traction. And I want to share with you a story of what happened not long after I had started. I was introduced to a very, very wealthy individual, somebody who is known to give millions of dollars a year to tzedakah. Mamish, a special person, someone who helps Klal Yisrael, someone who helps the world. Right? This is a very well-known, well-respected individual. And the introduction was made with the idea that maybe this person would be happy to help forward my projects and help bring more Torah out to the world, more of Torah's wisdom and ideas and insight. And so we set up a meeting. The meeting went really well. We spoke for about an hour, and he said, look, Reb Moshe, I want to have a follow-up meeting with you. Let's meet in a couple of days. I want you to prepare a shir, prepare some Torah, prepare some wisdom that we can speak about. So I spent the next 2 days thinking, okay, sitting down and meeting with this big person, and he really wants to help bring out the ideas. What's the most fundamental thing we could speak about to share with him? So I decided, we're going to speak about simcha. We're going to speak about happiness and what's the secret of happiness. And we got on the call. It was a Zoom call. And I said the whole introduction, the whole beginning of what it is that we want to speak about. And then I got to the punchline, which is, and what is the secret of happiness? And to my utter surprise, the man looked at me and he said, I don't believe in happiness. And I was very much so taken aback. I said, excuse me? You don't believe in happiness? He said, I don't believe in happiness. I don't believe we have any control over whether or not we are happy. It's from Hashem. Some people are happy, some people are not. Some people get it, some people don't get it. I said, wow, what an interesting opinion. It's amazing because Torah, science, and psychology all seem to beg to differ, but he was pretty adamant that this is the way. I'm seeing that my phone got cut off. Can people still hear me? You can't hear me, right? 1 second. Okay, are we back? Good. So he said to me, I don't believe in happiness. Hashem makes some people happy. Hashem makes other people unhappy, and there's nothing you can do about it. I said, I can't. That's a very interesting opinion. Torah, psychology, science all seem to beg to differ. But okay, I'll entertain your thought. And I said, but just hear me out. Let's just talk about joy a little bit. Let's just talk about simcha a little bit and what's at the core, what's on the inside of this space, and what does God want from us? I will spare you the details of that conversation, but unfortunately, it didn't get much better. The conversation ended off. He immediately went into, the Ger Rebbe lost 17 children in the war. Do you think he'll ever be happy? I had a friend last week who lost a son. Do you think he'll ever be happy again? And it's tragic, and I felt for his pain, and I said, obviously that's terrible, and I'm so sorry to hear. What do you think? And he said, of course, he'll never be happy again. Never. How could he ever be happy again after something like that happened? Needless to say, the conversation didn't get much better. The conversation ended with him saying, the only people who are happy are stupid or women. And then I was done. I was like, you're everything that I stand against. How could you believe such a thing? How could you say such a thing? And he went on, and he had his opinions about life, and I realized who I was speaking to and what kind of conversation we were having, and I was white. I was floored. I went to my wife. I went to the other room after the conversation. My wife looked at me and she said, "What happened? What happened to you?" I said, "You're not going to believe this call I just had." And obviously, when I speak to everybody on this call, a group of very special chevra, a group of very special holy people, I know that nobody agrees with the statements that individual said, and I want to make sure that I'm not awakening any deep judgments on that person, despite the fact that I think we can all agree to disagree with his prerogative on life. He's still a very good person in other ways, and he really does try to make a difference, a positive difference in the world. But nevertheless, I was floored. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that unfortunately, even though we don't agree with that type of thinking, but it's that type of thinking that kind of subtly ends up in our subconscious that keeps us from being happy. How many times we go through life and we've got some limiting belief about why we can't be happy, right? Oh, if I were more one way and not another way, if my life had gone in one direction and not another, if I got more sleep last night, if my kids weren't so bothersome today, if the toilet didn't break, if whatever, we have all our excuses. We also have excuses. So he just has a very big excuse, but we also have excuses that we live with why we're not living a life of joy. And we read on Shabbos in Koheles, we read that Shlomo Melech said, what's life about? He says, be happy and do good. Be happy and do good. And the Baruch Hu wants us to be Ovid B'Simcha. This whole time of Tishrei, this whole time of Rosh Hashanah, Siyas Mei Tshuva, Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, the whole time is about Tshuva. It's about coming back to who we are. And Yom Kippur, after Musaf, there was a break between Musaf and Mincha. I went home And my wife was sitting there on the couch, and she said, Moshe, I had this great idea for a class. You don't know who my wife is. My wife is also, I think she's an amazing, amazing teacher. She's phenomenal. She's the best. If she could be here, I'm sure she'd be here. Baruch Hashem, she's doing us a favor, and she's watching the kids during the class. And she said to me, I had this great idea for a class. I want to bring in sandbags. She teaches at Neve. She's like, I want to bring in sandbags to Neve, and I want my girls to hold a sandbag. Why do you want them to hold a sandbag? That I want them to hold a sandbag and then put it down and feel what it feels like to put down a weight. Because we all carry sandbags inside of us, a weight of who we think we're supposed to be and the past. We carry a lot of the past in us, and I want them to experientially feel what it means to put it down. And that was that was such a beautiful idea. And that's really what the Sfarim say. The Arizal says that Tishrei, you're supposed to break the month into two halves. There's the first 10 days, which are pretty serious, and Yira, and Aser Simei Tshuva, and Rosh Hashanah, and Tzom Gedalia, and Shabbos Shuva, and then Yom Kippur. And then there's the second half, which is a Zman of love, a Zman of Ava, a Zman of Simcha, a Zman of togetherness. And he brings from a pasuk in Shir Hashirim, Smola Tachas Roshi v'Yaminu Techapkeni, that the left hand is under my head and his right hand gives me a hug. That there are these two ideas, idea of din, an idea of chesed, idea of holding back and hard work, an idea of letting go and flow and freedom. And the whole first 10 days of this month were about putting down the sandbag, about letting go of who we're not, right? All the al chait this, al chait that, al chait this is really just you saying, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me, that's not me. That whole tekufa, the whole series of teshuvas, that's not me. But then we go forward, and this way forward of Sukkot and then Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah, this whole question, the whole time is surrounded by this question, well, who are you, right? So this is really an opportunity to say, this is me, right? And we leave from our homes and we come out to the sukkah. Baal Shem Tov says that nobody makes a mistake. There's no chait if a person is present. The idea that we fell into something that we're not, the idea that, a lot of people don't know what the word chait means. Yeah, we looked at the word chait as sin, but the word chait, the word sin, comes from the word chotei, chata, which means to go off the mark, to miss the mark, to be out of alignment. And we've lost alignment with our true self. We've lost touch with who we really are. And the Baal Shem Tov says that's why the word chait, we don't pronounce the aleph. The aleph is reflective of our neshama, it's reflective of the soul. And that wasn't present when we were making the mistake. Had it been present, we would have never made the mistake to begin with. Ein adam chote ela nichnas baruch shtos. A person only makes the mistake if they're filled with the spirit of foolishness. We weren't there. The whole Zman of Tishrei is coming back to who we are, right? Who are we beyond all the things that we've done on the outside? And it's Elokai neshama shenasatabi tahorahi. Our neshama is pure, our neshama is good, our neshama is waiting to express itself positively in the world. That's our das. Our das, right? You call it your knowing. Ravolbi says your das is yourself, and all of Tishrei is about coming back to yourself. And the sign that you're back with yourself is that you feel happy. We're unhappy when we're not ourselves, and we're joyous when we're our true, authentic being. When the light shines through us, right? When it shines through our face and through our words and through our thoughts and through our actions, we emanate joy. Right? That's the natural state, is to be a joyous. I mean, I don't know how many people out there have children or have seen children, but unless something's going wrong, they're very cute, right? And even when something's going wrong, they're cute. And we have a 2-year-old right now who, it's hard to get this kid to not smile. Baruch Hashem, bli ayin hara. And joy is natural. And then we go through the world, right? The pasuk in Koheles says, Hashem made Adam Yashar. Hashem made us straight, and we go off. This whole time is about coming back. So why is the sukkah the best place to come back to ourselves? Why is the sukkah the best place to come back to who we are, beyond the opinions of others and beyond all the stuff that we had picked up along the way? So our home, right, Baruch Hashem, I see, as my screen flips through here, I see people sitting. Some people are still in homes. Some people are in a sukkah. A home is permanent, right? This is the major difference between a house and a sukkah, is that the house is concrete, the house is wood, the house is brick, the house is unchanging. And the beauty of the sukkah is its impermanence, the diras arai. And the beauty of impermanence is now it's open for change. And that's the definition of impermanence, that it's not going to be the same way. And we come out to the sukkah because there's an opportunity to realize, wow, we can change. Right? The way we were before isn't the way we're going to be. It's not set in stone. It doesn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be the way we were up until now. There's an opportunity to grow and to change and to develop and to reflect the essence of who we are. And we come into this amazing, it's a chamber of change. I sit in here and I look at the schach and I look at the walls, and everybody feels it, right? When you sit in a sukkah, you can't help but feel there's a special ruach in the air, this special feeling of positivity, a feeling of spirit, a feeling of ruach HaKodesh, a ruach of Kedusha, a spirit of holiness. It's something, it's really a gift. It's a gift to sit in a sukkah. It's a gift to feel sitting in a sukkah. And it's a gift to awaken, to come back. Who do you want to be? And especially now, during the Seger in Eretz Yisrael and during the pandemic, where we're really not going anywhere, like I was mentioning to Shlomo earlier, we're stuck in the sukkah. And what a place to be stuck. It's a pretty amazing thing. All of Sukkot is about Yichud, right? It's Svarim Kadosh and Torah Kadosh says it's about Yichud, it's about togetherness, it's about connection. It's about seeing how all the parts fit together. Maybe the two major things, maybe the two most important things that we can do is to change the way that we look at ourselves and the way that we look at the world around us. Everything that happens in our life, every thought we have, every word we say, every action we take, and all the feelings, everything we have goes through the filter of how we view ourselves and how we view the world. Do we see the world as a good world? Is life happening to you, or is it happening for you? Right? You have hashgacha pratis in your life. You see the good in what's happening, right? Like HaKadosh Baruch Hu is guiding you and directing you in the right direction, right? Or not, right? And everything that happens goes through that filter. And the other filter that everything goes through is, how do you see yourself, right? To recognize that we're made b'tzelem Elokim, we're made in the image of God, and that we're perfect, we're essentially perfect, and we're coming here to do work through the guf. But the neshama is pure, and the neshama is good, and the neshama is a chelik of Hashem, it's a chelik of Khamayim, something that's so precious and so beautiful, and every person is once in a universal history, and every person has something to offer the world that nobody else can offer, and every person has the smile that nobody else has, right? How do we look at ourselves, and how do we look at the world we live in? And the sukkah is an opportunity to sit and work on those two things, to sit and to rewire and reinvent the way that we look at ourselves, to reshape the way we look at the world. It's a massive opportunity. The word sukkah itself, it has two meanings. All right, my camera looks like it stopped here. Still together? I think so. It has two meanings. Sukkah comes from the word schach, which means to cover up, or like we're all walking around. Where's my with our masecha, right? Our mask that we wear. We're all wearing our masechas. They cover us up. It also comes from the word soche. And soche means to see. Soche means to have a deep vision. Right? Rashi in Sechas Rosh Hashanah says, "Hanosin l'sechvi vina l'havchin ben yomim v'mayla." Right, the first bracha we say in the morning in Birkas HaShachar, a sechvi. Why is a tarnagol, a rooster, called a sechvi that can distinguish between day and night? A sechvi comes from the word soche. It can see. It has the capacity to discern and to understand deeply. Come to be soche beruach HaKodesh. When you sit in a sukkah, you're covering up the outside world, right? That's the schach. But soche, so that you can see a deeper world. We're being mesakech, we're being closed out, and then we're soche, we're seeing deeper. focus on what's really important. Focus on our family. We focus on our mission in the world. We focus on our avodas Hashem, on mitzvahs, and on our all the inner work. Focus on what's real. The amazing Zohar that says the word sukkah. If I had a whiteboard behind me, I would write it on the board, but use your imagination. The word sukkah, the first and the last letter of the word sukkah is hat, a samech and a hey, hat, which means to silence, which means to quiet. Like it says by Kalev, Vayahas Kalev Asa'am, and Kalev quieted the nation, he silenced the nation. I think has, he hushed, right? He hushed the nation. So the outside of the word sukkah is has, which means to quiet. The inside of the word sukkah is a vav and a chaf. Chav vav is gematria 26, which is Shem Hashem. Yud Kei Vav Kei is gematria 26. And the metaphor is that a sukkah is has on the outside, Hashem on the inside. When you quiet all the noise, you'll find on the outside, you'll find God on the inside. And that's really what the whole sukkah is about. And we do that by quieting the noise of all the things that surround us. And when I say the noise, I don't just mean the fact that I'm surrounded by a lot of sukkahs and there's a lot of noise on the street, but I mean all the voices in our head. Like the man said, I don't believe in happiness. To close out all those voices, the part of us that doesn't believe in simcha, all the part of us that's been fed some lies about life, and we've signed a wrong contract, a wrong agreement with reality. And it's time that we can renew our contract. Every sukkah we can renew our contract with reality and sign something new about how we see ourselves and how we see the world. The very first thing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu told Avram Avinu was Lech Lecha. You know, Avram Avinu spent his whole life looking for God, and then God said, go to yourself. How's that? It's amazing. Avram spent his whole life looking for Hashem, and Hashem said, go to you. And how do you find you? I'm not telling you where to go. I'm just going to tell you what to leave behind. And leave behind the thoughts of my artzecha, my moladatcha, my beis avicha. Leave behind all the different parts of you that you're carrying, the sandbags of the past, so you can find the real future. Ela aret asher echad, the place where I will show you. Rav Moshe David Bali says, to the place where I will show you doesn't just mean I'll show you when you get there, but it means the place where I will show you. I will reveal you there. I will reveal who you are. It's not an accident that the word schach is gematria lech lecha. Yagel Machane Ephraim points out that it's when we go under the schach, so when we go into the sukkah, we can start a new process of lech lecha, to come closer to ourselves. Kadosh Baruch Hu told Avram, if you go to yourself, avarechecha vehei bracha, you're going to find all the blessing in the world is when you find yourself. All the blessing in the world is when you get there, which is why the word lech lecha and why the word schach is gematria meya, 100, because we say 100 brachas a day. All the brachas in the world flow from finding yourself, flow from finding the inner source of who we are. The Zohar Kadosh says that the schach, when you sit in the schach is like your neshama. The metaphor for your neshama, you sit and you look at the schach, wow, there's something above me, there's something guiding me and protecting me and taking care of me, and it's my inner self, my higher calling, my soul, my pintel yid, my nefesh. And Sukkah is about listening to that voice. It's about not validating others' opinions over yours anymore. It's about being okay and excited and enthusiastic, about being authentic. Tamim tiyem Hashem elokecha, to be your full self with Hashem, and not to be worried, not to live with the fear anymore of what's going to be from the outside world and what people are going to say and what people are going to think. It's so easy to get nervous and to worry, but to leave that all behind and lech lecha, to listen to your voice, right? The Tosfos in Yerushalmi, the Tosfos in the end of Sukkah quote Yerushalmi that says that Sukkah is a time where they were shoev ruach hakodesh. They got divine inspiration, meaning that they were able to connect to deeper aspects of life. They could see deeper ruach hakodesh. Ruach hakodesh is like your intuition, right? That's the Baal Shem Tov says that the lowest level of Ruach HaKodesh is a Ruach HaKodesh ma'at, like your intuition. You can kind of figure out where to go. You have to listen to that. Sukkah is a time to listen to yourself and to hear that Ruach HaKodesh, and you know you're doing it right if you're feeling good, if you're feeling joy, if you're feeling that tanuk of the pleasure of being connected to yourself. It's really, really the simple of Sukkah. And we generally get it wrong. We look at the world from the outside in instead of the inside out. The pasuk in Bereshit says that there was a river that flowed out from Eden, lahashkos sagan. Nara was yotze me Eden lahashkos sagan. Eden means bliss, means joy. The gra Ramchal say the joy of being connected to your source, the joy of being connected to who you are. And we think that the Nahar, we think that we're going to flow into the Gan, which is the garden, the world. We'll do things in the world, and then we'll find happiness, and then we'll find joy. And Oneg, which is the Rosh Tevos, Eden Nahar Gan, the joy, the pleasure, the truth, is the other way. You have to start from your Eden, you start from your Makor, you start from your source, you start from being connected and feeling good and feeling positive about life. And when you do that, you're given Yata Dishmaya, you're given a flow, you're given a Nahar that flows through you so that you can go out and affect the God, so you can go out and affect the world. These are Shem this year. We should be Zoche that, we're all in Bidud, to some degree we're Badad, and to capitalize on being alone this year and to really go into what makes us tick, what gives us chiyus, what gives us energy, what inspires us. What is my voice inside of me saying? What does Kadosh Baruch Hu want from me in this world? I'm only here for so much time. What's my Eden? What's my Eden? What's my bliss? What's my joy? And to really connect to that joy in a deep way, and to allow that joy to get us to the place where we get the Siyata Dishmaya, to have the Nahar, the river, flow through us, Lahashkos Sagan, to go and nurture and water the garden, to go and nurture and pick up the world around us. As Hashem, we should be Zoche to connect deeper to ourselves, that we can go out and connect deeper to the world, and deeper to Kadosh Baruch Hu.
Reb Moshe, what a mikvah. Thank you. Thank you so much. That was so sweet. I really hope it's the first of many times that our chavras get to learn together, and that Be'ez Hashem can come out to us too, here in Efrat, and come to you. Bemet, all the brachas to you and your beautiful mishpacha, who I feel like is like my mishpacha. And your sweet voice of Torah should find all the hungry souls, all the thirsty neshamas that need to hear that neimus, that neimut, that noam, that sweetness that our generation demands to hear when someone gives over to Hashem. So thank you so much. Thanks for being a real chaver, and a lot of atzlacha to you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Love you. Chaverim Yikarim, thank you so much. We are going to meet again in about 2.5 hours for tonight's Ushpezin with Rav Lazer Brody will be with us, as well as Nachum Siegel. The Moshav band will be tomorrow. Just want to make sure everyone knows Moshav is actually tomorrow. We have to do some last second alterations, but Bezrat Hashem will be tomorrow. Daniel Javiel, Nachum Siegel, Lenny Solomon, and Rav Lazer Brody, and maybe some additional guests as well. Ashreinu Matov Chelkeinu. We'll see you shortly. Thank you for being with us.